Hello and welcome to the review. Today, we're going to be talking about Heroes of the Elemental Chaos. Just actually came out yesterday. So I decided to it came out yesterday. So, let's get underway. It's a 4E book. It's Essentials D&D. I know a lot of people bitch when all of a sudden someone was like, "Oh, I didn't know it was Essentials." This is Essentials, just so you know. Not that that really matters. It doesn't mean shit ultimately, because everything is cross-compatible 4E. So, anyway, first off, this book opens up with a lot of just role-playing information. The first 36 pages are devoted to role-playing style information. It starts off by talking about the elements, the elemental chaos, elemental magic, things like that. It's just fairly basic. That goes on for about 10 pages. And then it goes into primordial cults, things like that, planar breaches, just things about the plane of how primordials can get in and out. So, right there, we're getting a lot of ideas for a campaign. You can base an entire campaign around it, really. We get a little bit of information about the realms. Some of this is a repeat of a lot of Al-Qadim stuff, in the fact that the Elemental Chaos dealt a lot with genies and that style of magic, and the Elemental Chaos, at least to me, and from information I've seen, has a lot of stuff like that. For example, the City of Brass, as we saw in Genie Lamp, the Al-Qadim box set, that was an Efreet city. Things like that. So you could take those, if you have that, and if I ever do the City of Brass in my campaign, I'm busting out that map, because it's going to be better, because there isn't one actually in here for it. But I can get 4E information, 2nd edition information, and make it how I want. Then we get a small section about elemental touched races. Now, these are not game statistics. They are races that can have elemental things to them. The Dragonborn. They talk about a subgroup of them called the Crucible, who were Dragonborn who kind of embraced their elemental nature, dragon. They don't get any game bonuses if they're members of the Crucible, but it's just a really cool story option. We get that for the Drow with the House of Ilserves. The Dwarves get Forgeborn, who are actually dwarves who embraced the elemental nature when they were under the oppression of the giants, and when they escaped, they now used that power to fight back against those who enslaved them. So it's a really cool story. Then we get elemental powers, how you could we learn about primordial shards, which are little sparks of life, essentially, of a primal being, which you could give to your players as a quest item, shit like that. Which ties into the next section, which is about if you were to use a primordial as a patron for your person or your party, which you perform tasks for them, and they grant you boons such as shards or other gifts listed later on in the book. And we get a long list of primordials and elemental princes. Primordials that are actually free from being imprisoned, because at the end of the Dawn War, which was between the gods and the primordials ultimately lost, so most of them were imprisoned. So it lists some of the ones that aren't imprisoned anymore, or have broken, or never were. And then we get the bound primordials. We get good sections on them, so we get enough information to actually be able to use them. Then it actually has an entire table of all the primordials that ever were of note, and it lists their status as imprisoned, deity, free, or dead. So that's really helpful, actually, because you could use them for your campaigns. And it has ideas of how you might even, if you already got a started campaign, how you would bring elemental magic in with ease. So that's always helpful, because something like this is very different. It's game changing ultimately, because not overpowered, but all of a sudden there's this new aspect into your game that you'll have to deal with somehow. So it's always nice to get a little bit of help. Then we get themes. I'm a big fan of themes. I love the idea of them. I think they add a lot to the character, and I like how they give you the optional powers and additional abilities that you can use to really make your character unique as opposed to someone else of the same class and race. We get a couple of them. We get Demon Spawn, Earth Forger, Elemental Initiate, Firecrafter, Iron Wrought, Janissary, Moatborn, Primordial Adept, Water Shaper, and Windlord. Now, a couple of those, obviously, like 4 of them, were based on an element solely, which were the Earth Forger, the Firecrafter, the Water Shaper, and the Windlord. And you can overlay these on your characters and make them just really unique, especially if you were to use them in conjunction with some of the optional race abilities. For example, if you were to play a Dwarven Forgeborn Earth Forger, I think they're Forgeborn. Yeah, a Dwarven Forgeborn Earth Forger, because the Forgeborn idea and the Earth Forger abilities would really mix nicely to give you that, your character would really seem like they have that power. I think that's really helpful. Then we get the classes. Now, some of these are really good. Actually, one of them is one of the big reasons I bought this book. But first, we get a druid option. They get the Desert of the Wasteland. It's a new primal aspect pack thing for when you're using the primary, the Forgotten, not primary, but the Heroes of the Forgotten Kingdoms or the Player's Handbook. They actually offer a new class feature for both of them. We get a new way for monks to give them an elemental flair. We get the elementalist sorcerer, a elementalist as a sorcerer class. I believe it's the first essentials sorcerer, so that's always really cool. And they actually do have a lot of power because you get to pick kind of what you specialize in, but you get access to all of them. So that's really cool. We get a new pact with the Primordials for the Warlock, which goes for Warlock, Hexblade, and I think Binder. Let me check that. I'm not positive on that one. But, so it's always really nice to see these things. By the way, it does give really cool summoned creatures. It's the Elemental Pact for Warlocks. Yep. So, it says Hexblade, so I don't know if you could use it with a Binder. But you probably could. And then the next part is really one of the big reasons I bought this book, is the wizard class called the Shire. It is a Al-Qadim class originally from 2nd edition, so it only existed for 1 edition before. They are wizards, but instead of studying spell books and tomes and everything, they had a little a little Djinn companion. And that little companion, at the beginning of the days or whatever, and this was true in 2nd edition too, would go into go to a genie in 2nd edition, but in this one, go into the elemental chaos and barter for the power of his master. And then he'd come back and bring it with him. And that's a really cool concept. And then you get to pick what your Djinn is. It is in small Efreet, a Djinn, a Dao, or a Madrid, which are fire, earth, water, and wind, not respectively though, because I don't remember what order I said them in. But then we get a little bit of information that's useful for world building, things like the Society of the Shifting Sand, which is a Sha'ir organization that's devoted to, gathering relics and artifacts and gathering information, much like the Pathfinder Society for those who play Pathfinder, or Indiana Jones for those who don't. Then we get Paragon pads. There's actually a good bit of them. I found them very cool for the most part. Some of them are very class specific. I'm not a fan of that. I do not like the ones that are like, this is how it's going to be on some of these. Oh yeah, if they're introduced in this book, they're all... Never mind. But we get the Demon Bound, which requires the theme Demon Spawn, or not being good, I believe. We get Doom Lord, Elemental Anchorite. I don't believe I pronounced that right, but that's how it phonetically sounds. Elemental Savant, Favorite Share, God Warder, which is really cool because the God Warders are a Paragon path that you have to be trained in religion. But what the story is that uh, when after the gods imprisoned the primordials, they would set these God Warders down around them, kind of essentially to act as guards. Obviously, these are Paragon paths, so they're not really supposed to go toe to toe with primordial beings that they're most powerful. But what they do is a lot of immobilization. I can't remember what they sacrifice, but at one point when they hit or they crit or whatever, I think it's whenever they hit or crit. I can't remember which one, but they reduce their damage by 10 as long as it does not drop below 10, and instead of that damage, they immobilize the target until the end of till the end of the God Warder's next turn, I believe, or until the end of the creature's next turn. So that's really cool. It's really helpful in the middle of a fight if you got someone who needs this thing locked down to stay there in that one spot. The God Warder could just be like, not moving. You're not going anywhere. So that's really cool. We get 2 Epic Destinies. We get the Emergent Primordial, which is one... Oh, sorry, I skipped the other Paragon paths. We get the Herald of Vesuvu, Legendary Hexblade, Elemental Pact only. Prince of Genies, Reforged Soul, and Speaker of XAOS. So, however that would be pronounced. Then we get 2 Epic Destinies, the Emergent Primordial and the Lord of Chaos. The Emergent Primordial actually acts as, essentially, you've got a being of the primordial. You got a little bit of the primordial patron or whoever inside of you, and you'll kind of battle for control in your head too. So it's a really cool story. But at the same time, it also gives you a lot of power. So that's always really fun. Lord of Chaos is pretty good, but not as interesting, in my personal opinion, standing next to the Emergent Primordial. We get some new feats. They're pretty cool. I mean, there's nothing of note, nothing of real note that's great and that stands out, I don't believe. So, I mean, but really, what can you expect from a feat? I mean, we get some really cool ones, like here's the one I was looking for. It's an epic feat, but it's called Earthwalker. You gain Earthwalk and gain phasing after using Second Wind. So that's really cool. Second Wind, through the wall. Of course, that can be really broken, but at the same time, it's an epic level feat. So you take that as you would. Get some Elemental Companion feats, Arcane Familiars. There's a list of new familiars that you can get, so that's always fun. Flip on through these. There's actually a good bit of companions. And it actually tells you, ideas of how to roleplay your elemental companion. So it's not just a little note on your sheet. It's actually something that your character may even converse with. We get some new some elemental themed armors. We get brass burn armor, chromatic robes, demon skin armor. We get a couple of weapons, the Earth Splitter Axe, the Firewind Blade, we get Storm Shard Weapon for spears. That's always good. Honestly, I'm a big fan of spears. I think they're a really underused weapon for the most part, and they can add a lot to a game. So I'm really happy to see that they actually made a specific enchantment that can only go on the spear. We get the Tidal Weapon for hammers. That's always fun. We get a couple of new implements. I was a little disappointed in the new implements because almost all of them are tomes. I think there's one key focus, but everything else is a tome. No, wait, sorry. There's 1, 2. There's 3 key focuses, or kai, however you want to pronounce it, and the rest are in the other one. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, and there's 4 tomes. So, I mean, they're cool and all, but I was a little disappointed. I was hoping that there'd be other tomes. I think that the tome and the key focus limits it to the monk and wizards and sorcerers, I think, can use tomes. I'm not positive on that one, but I was a little bit disappointed in that respect. But the implements are really cool if you want to use them for the wizard and the monk. We get primordial shards from a couple of different people. The Cinder of Gazra, Echo of Chihakadai, the Obsidian Sliver, Pale Tooth, Pitted Flowstone. Then we get gifts. These are kind of like alternative rewards that, like I was saying before, your patron could grant you. Gift of Chaos, Gift of Flame, Gift of Stone and Sea, and Storm and Wind. So those are all really fun. They add a lot to your character. And I was a big fan of that. And that brings us to the end of this book. Ultimately, I was a big fan of this book. I thought it was well worth it. I bought mine for $20 off Amazon, and I have actually sent here the day it came out. A couple of notes. I think the artwork on this book is awesome. Like, pretty much all of it. It's not really a good one to flip to. Let's go to a chapter heading. Let's see if I can find it. I mean, I don't normally comment on the artwork because it's not always worth it, nor is it, pertinent normally to what's on the inside. But there was one I just thought was really cool. I think it might have been it was this one. Take a look at that. Battling this ice giant thing, this ice dragon is ripping him a new one. It's just really cool. And then the cover obviously has a really cool. I don't even know what that is. I want to fight it though. But yep, that brings us to the end of Here's the Elemental Chaos. Ultimately, I think this book is well worth the buy for playing 4E. So, especially if you're going to use it in conjunction with Al-Qadim stuff, great. But until next time, have a good one.